Hello, everybody. Hello, hello, and welcome. On this rainy day in summer, where we're still not sure, should we have the mask on and should we have the mask off? If our guidelines here at Story and Song is if you are fully vaccinated, then it's your choice. You can keep it on or not. So I'm going to take this off so you can hear me. I'm Donna Paz Kaufman, and with my husband, Mark, in 2018, we opened Story and Song for this space to be the living room of the community, to celebrate all kinds of aspects of life. And today I'm so happy that Mbinguni is here. We started a conversation many months ago about her storytelling, what becomes of us as we collect our stories over the years. And so today is a celebration. I feel like it's good to be here in the community living room, Mbinguni, to celebrate your achievement from taking an idea, and maybe a lot of emotions too, and we'll hear more from Mbinguni about that, to turn that into a novel, which is more than just telling a friend a story, isn't it? It takes a real commitment to write all those pages and all of those words. So today, you know Mbinguni, she's a beloved member of our community and now the community of the book as a debut author. She'll be in conversation today with our Dearsha Johnson. And Dearsha's family goes back at least 4 generations here on Amelia Island, the Johnsons. Yeah, we've got little ones on the way. So Dearsha Johnson does all things kid at Story and Song. You'll see her downstairs. She hand selects every book, every gift, every little cuddly cute thing downstairs. And certainly does programming to bring into the fold children because of just the importance of books and reading to our lives. So please welcome our debut novelist, Mbinguni, in conversation with Dearsha Johnson.
Hi, everybody.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I am incredibly excited to talk to you today about this book. But before we get started, I really wanted to ask you what your background in writing is.
So I've always been an avid reader. My grandmother kind of started that love in me. And so I've written since as far back as I can remember. I still have things that I wrote from when I was in the 6th grade. And I've written some of everything. I write poetry, music, that kind of stuff. But actually for my job, I'm an instructional designer.
Okay.
And I write educational material for middle school, high school kids.
Okay.
But that's not the kind of writing that I'm passionate about. Of course, this is
Right.
what I'm passionate about.
So with that part out of the way, what inspired this story?
Mouse, Hannah, she came to me first.
Okay.
My characters kind of hang around with me. And when I saw her, she was dressed like she was from the late 1950s.
Okay.
And I just knew there was something tragic that had happened with her mother. And there was this journey that was going to take place. And that's kind of how it began.
Wow.
And she hung out with me for a very long time. I'm glad she's been evicted.
There is something about those characters that stick with you. And I get that. As a writer, I do get that. So you knew something tragic was going to happen to Mouse's mother. Did you know that it was going to be...
No, not until I wrote it. And it's so funny because my aunt, who was in the audience, she's seen several drafts of the story. And she said, does she really have to die? Can she come back? So, it was, I didn't know how tragic it was going to be until it kind of unfolded. And sometimes, especially, you get attached to characters and that kind of thing. So it was hard, but I knew that it was necessary for what was going to happen later.
Okay.
So
I have to ask, I'm assuming most everybody has read the book.
yeah, I forgot about that before I said that. I thought about it afterwards. Sorry.
And if you haven't,
Spoiler
we're
alert.
sorry.
Spoiler alert, my bad.
But just the fact that this tragedy happened, and in the back of your mind, she's now on the road, on this journey with this person
Yes, I won't give
that
any more
has
away.
created this tragedy, and
Right.
you're going, when? When is this kid going to, be relieved of what's happening to her? 'Cause she's, what, 7.5 years old?
Yes.
It's just the whole story. You're going, when? When
Yeah.
is this going to happen?
Yeah.
But you do such a fantastic job of taking us to each place.
Thank you.
And in each place, we meet such amazing characters, such amazing people. I was just floored by. I mean, did you have to do a lot of research?
I did research about the time.
Okay.
Because I'm obviously not, I wasn't born in
Yeah.
the 50s. So I did have to research some things. There were things that I can remember hearing family members talk about
Okay.
and stuff like that. So there were things that I remember, but I did have to do some research. I had to research kind of some of the clothing and the way the houses looked and that kind of thing. But overall, the characters really came from snatches of, things that I encountered growing up,
Okay.
or things that I've seen. So that was really the inspiration. Like even though they travel from place to place, all of them are small towns.
Yes.
Which is where I grew up here in Fernandina Beach. So that's what I'm used to. And those are the people, small town, you have that
Right,
sense
what
of
you know.
community, right? And people that and that's what I wanted to convey in the story.
And I love that about each town. They always found someone that somehow took care of them, so I really, really enjoyed, watching that happen. Did you know that a lot of the influence was going to be women when you were writing the story? Or did that
didn't.
come later?
I realized after it was finished how that kind of formed. That wasn't intentional or conscious, but it's reflective of my own life. So I've had a lot of strong women around me and to help raise me, and so that excuse me was it kind of appeared to me after I was talking to something or doing an interview, and I thought about it, I was like, wow, okay, really, I did really write a lot of strong women in this book. And so I thought that was pretty cute. Miss Sookie was one of the first characters besides Mouse to come to me, and so
She's one of my
she's my favorite outside of
I
Mouse.
love Miss Sookie. She's one of my favorites. So, in fact, when, Mouse has to move on, it broke my heart. I actually kind of broke my heart. I think it broke my heart every time she had to move on, from whoever she had grown close to,
Right.
and started to feel some, sense of normalcy with, because she's still in the back of her mind is this tragedy that has happened. So I just have to ask you, what is your favorite part of the book? What was your favorite part to maybe even write?
I think Miss Sookie's was my favorite part to write.
Okay.
And like I said, she was one of the first characters besides Mouse that came to me, and I immediately knew what she did, who she was. And but I think my favorite scene is with Miss Pearl, and that is all I will say for those who have not read the book. But when you get to that part,
Do you feel comfortable reading a little excerpt from
the book? Sure. Thank you. So I will read when Miss Sookie comes into the.
That's a good spot.
Let's see here. I have to find it. I should have brought my book and marked it. Okay, hold on. Okay.
She didn't know I was going to ask her. To
No,
do that.
she surprised me there. I'm trying to find the spot that I like to read though. Okay. Can everybody hear me okay? I feel like I'm struggling a little bit. Okay. We went in search of a place that would offer room and board in exchange for work, just as we'd done in Franklintown. In Edenville, it was Sookie's, the local whorehouse. Edenville, Michigan was small, and all the folks of working age were already settled into jobs. Those who were looking were folks who didn't have roots in this town. I had no desire to grow any there. Sookie's was a 2-story house that stood at the corner of Williams and Stark. The house had a simple exterior, tan in color, with white trim and shutters. The roof was covered with shingles that were the same color as the house. The front porch had a small table with 2 wooden chairs on both sides of the door and a long swing hanging from the top of the far right end. The chairs in the swing had matching gold cushions. Ray marched right up the stairs and knocked on the front door despite the bystanders that looked at the house and us with their mouths turned up as if they smelled something stink. The door opened to a statue of a woman looking shocked at our arrival. "Well, ain't nobody knocked on this front door in ages. Y'all ain't from around here," she said with squinted eyes. The woman looked Ray up and down. Then she turned her attention to me and studied me for an uncomfortable moment. "What can I do for you?" She turned her attention back to Ray. "Me and my daughter here need a place to stay. I can work for you to cover both our room and board." "Now ain't this something? What's y'all's names and where you from?" "Franklintown, North Carolina. I'm Ray and this here is Hannah." The woman inhaled and exhaled slowly. "And how y'all know to come here?" "I didn't, ma'am. It just looked like a place where I might be able to find what I'm looking for." "You can call me Miss Sookie." She paused as if she was thinking something over. "Well, I sure do need the help of a big, strong man around here. And I need a young lady who can do some things around the house that I just don't have time to do no more. Y'all come on in." Miss Sookie shifted her weight back and pulled the door open further while eyeing us both. "The folks around here let you run this place with no trouble?" Ray asked after looking around at the girls who'd gathered in the study, which we passed as we followed Miss Sookie. I thought it was strange that there were only young women living in this house. The black folks turn down their noses at us, but they leave us alone. The white folks pretend as if we ain't here. This house sits between both sides of town and it's mine free and clear. We all mind our own business and it works out just fine. This house going to be a problem for you? "No, ma'am. I mean Miss Sookie." Miss Sookie was larger than life. She dressed in clothes that I had never seen before. Smooth, satiny material, brilliant yellows and reds, blues and greens. Every curve of her body was hugged by fabric like a family member you loved and hadn't seen in ages. Her shoes had a heel higher than any shoes Mama had worn. The sound of her heels beating the floor created a rhythm that made you want to dance. She almost looked as if she was dancing when she walked. She had on a lot of makeup, much more than I'd ever seen anyone wear. Through 2 blue eyeshadow and 2 red lips, I could still see how pretty she really was. I was sure she was far older than she looked, but upon asking how old she was, I was told never to ask a woman her age. "You can tend to the grounds and maintain the house, and Hannah can tend to my room. I haven't had a customer in years. I make enough money to pay the bills and live comfortably without having to entertain personally," she explained to Ray. I wondered what her talent was. Could she juggle? Maybe she could sing. I didn't think she was quite tall or slender enough to be like the dancers in the picture shows. She wasn't exactly fat, but she wasn't thin either. "Ray, before the week is out, take Hannah on down to that school. In the evening, she needs to be cleaning my room or in y'all room. I can't have no kids running around here while my girls are trying to work. No man wants to screw her with a child around. It reminds them of their obligations at home. They come here to forget about all that, for a while anyway," Miss Sookie said wistfully. What was a whore and what did they have to do with screws? Ray used screws around me just fine when he built stuff. I shrugged off my confusion. "Well, I don't think Mouse needs to go to no school," Ray responded doubtfully. Miss Sookie's eyebrows drew together at the use of Mouse, then relaxed in recognition that he was talking about me. Miss Sookie responded matter-of-factly, "Whether you think she need to go or not, she don't need to be around here looking at grown folk being grown. It ain't good for a girl child. She'll learn when she's old enough what goes on between a man and a woman, but for now, she's too young. If you want to work here, you're going to have to do as I ask on that one." All right, I'll take her tomorrow." Ray and I both understood that was the final say on the matter. "And one last thing, Ray. As the only rooster living in the hen house," Miss Sookie said as she looked at him long and hard, stay away from my girls. Thank you.
That's a great scene. I love that all the women in Mouse's life protect her.
Mhm.
I love that.
Mhm.
It's just an amazing image, and it's great for when they're old enough to read it.
Yes.
She had some really great role models.
She did.
So, what? I'm sorry, I had a question and I lost it just that fast.
It's okay.
What did you want everyone to get out of this book? What was your purpose? It might have even changed,
It was really two things. I don't think really when I started the story, I didn't have a purpose per se. I just knew the story that I wanted to tell. But after finishing it, what was revealed to me was that tragedy doesn't have to define us. That's the first one. And that love conquers all. It is the force that can repair. And, when you have that in your life, somehow you find a way to get through whatever it is, no matter what. And so that was the thing that really held Mouse together. Even though children are resilient, that was something tragic to go through and still come out on the other side, functioning and healthy and happy. And so that was the biggest part of it that was important to me, or that I felt was the crux of the story.
Yeah, she did. Her strength really comes throughout the entire book. It's like I said, you're still sitting there you're reading with her, and you're with her, and you're going, but but when? So, do you have any other thoughts that you might want to share with everybody that concerning the story, concerning the book, concerning your any of the characters?
I loved all of the characters except for Ray. I struggled with how I felt about Ray, but I knew he was necessary. And so, as an author, first time doing this, all of the characters are very important to me, and are kind of a part of me in a way. So that part was really fun and interesting, and I tried to, as best as I could, to give Ray some humanity and have it where people wouldn't just flat out hate him. Although I don't know that I achieved that. Most people, that's off the rip. They tell me I can't stand Ray. I wanted something that happened to him, and so. But I really enjoyed writing it. I hope people enjoyed reading it, as much as I enjoyed writing it, and that it makes people laugh and cry and all those wonderful things.
There was definitely a roller coaster of emotions. Definitely. Yeah, I have to say I struggled with whether or not I liked, could like Ray, myself. So I get that. I do get that. All right. Well, I'm not
Can we
sure
open it up?
Timing is like, but I think we can open it up to questions now.
Yes.
How long did it take you to finish it from when you first put pen to paper?
14 years.
14 years.
Took a very long time. I started and stopped and wasn't, really sure. It wasn't until I got a couple of mentors who really poured into me and built my confidence as a writer that I kind of really started devoting time to writing and getting through the process. So once I really focused, it took me about 3 years.
Have you started on the next one yet?
I've started the research part of it. I haven't, and I've written a couple of things that have come to me, but not even a whole chapter yet.
Takes time.
Yes, ma'am. Oh,
Go ahead.
Mbinguni, how did you get back into the mindset of a 7-year-old? And did you go back to any 7-year-old, or did you go back to you?
that's a good question. I am very adventurous and playful. Like, I still watch cartoons and play video games. And so I think I have a childlike quality a lot of times, and I'm very playful with those who know me and know me well. So I didn't talk to any children or hang around any children. I just kind of thought to myself, how would a 7-year-old think about that or see that? Especially like, when she saw Ray and Sugar, the way that she thinks about that, I had to kind of think, like, what would a 7-year-old think if they saw that? So.
Yes. How was the journey to be published? Who helped you with that?
So I knew, I submitted the book to a few, of the heavy hitters, and either didn't get a response or got no.
They're lost.
And so, thank you. And so I decided I wanted it out. We had a timeline that we had set, and so we were going to self-publish. So when I thought the book had passed through the editing process and I was done, which I was wrong, I did go through a couple other passes. One of my mentors started rattling off questions. Have you done this? Have you done? And I was like, whoa. Wait a minute. I just wanted to write the book. Like, what? So after I found out there were so many little things that are involved in publishing, I reached out to a young lady who has a publishing company in Jacksonville. We connected. She liked the book, and she decided to publish it. So that's how that happened.
That's a blessing. Wow.
Yes.
I haven't had a chance to read it yet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. It seems like that's in the early part of the book.
Yes, it is. It is.
But from what you read, it's clear you have a very distinct voice. And I'm wondering whether there are any authors, though, that nevertheless influence you, have influenced you heavily in who they are and why.
Absolutely. What I said at the beginning about being an avid reader, I was into books so much. My grandmother raised me, and so there weren't a lot of children. I had friends, down the road, but in the house was just me. And so that was my escape, and my fun time was to read. So by the time I reached middle school, I was reading Toni Morrison. So she has been a big influence on my writing. I am a huge fan of Ta-Nehisi Coates. I love the way that he writes. Let's see, Pearl Cleage, Bernice McFadden, Tina McElroy Ansah, who was one of my mentors. And I'm trying to think, I feel like there's one more I want to name that I can't think of. Suzette Harrison, who is also one of my mentors. I really love the way she writes as well. Anybody? Yes.
My ex-wife is a Black romance novelist. She's on her 7th or 8th book. Her first couple of books, after we were divorced, I saw a lot of elements of me in it. So I was just curious.
Well, it's good that you can see yourself.
Actually, how I found out was my second wife was in either Barnes or Noble, one of the major book companies, and she actually picked up my wife's book and started reading it. And she said, "Oh my God, the story you told me about the ski trip and all that, all that's in here." So my question was, I'm sure you use a lot of your personal experience. How did you weave that in without making it obvious who you're talking about?
Well, there were some that were very obvious. The Deuce and the Quarter was a nod to my grandfather. So, yep. So there were some that were obvious, and there were some that weren't so obvious. I was very purposeful about those particular things, and but I lost both of my grandparents in the process of writing that book during that 14-year process. And so that was important to me to kind of make sure they were included. But otherwise, the funny thing is I kind of had to hide in plain sight because we were doing a reveal, and that's why I have a pseudonym and why I didn't use my real name. So all of that was purposeful. The things that are in there are kind of hidden, or there's something to kind of throw you off the trail. But it's just, I think it's natural as an author, we have to pull from somewhere, and so we pull from our real life and just try not to, but protect the names of the innocents. So, but like nothing tragic like that happened to me as a child or anything like that, and I don't know anyone who owned and operated a house of ill repute. So, yes.
How did you know when to stop, and how did you stop
Stop.
at the end
Oh.
when you finished?
I think it's funny because so there are elements of the book that are totally different than what I planned when I was writing. I think the book kind of told me when it was time. And I knew I didn't want it to be too long. So once she got to a place where I felt her story was resolved, that's where I kind of cut it off. Yeah.
Hello.
Hi.
I thoroughly enjoyed this book.
Thank you.
This book was excellent. It had great character development.
Thank you.
I could really see some of the people. I could even see some of the places, and I could even see some of their experiences, which was just vivid, just very vivid for me.
Mm-hmm.
I, even as recent as today, received a text message from my 86-year-old aunt who made a comment. I won't give the story away, because I may give the story away of what happened, but she made a comment like, "Oh, why did this happen?" And like, just keep reading. And, she's thoroughly enjoying the book, and right now, for me and everyone I've referred the book to, have rated it a 5-star book, 5 out of 5. Just a great book, great writing.
Thank you.
My question, people always ask, who is your favorite character to write about? But who is your least favorite character to write about? Believe it or not, I actually found a least favorite character in this book. However, and it probably, she's not my least favorite character, it was her actions that made her my least favorite.
Oh, I think I know.
Yeah. Who was your least favorite character that you just said, "Oh, let me just get this person done"?
Actually, I think it was probably Ray, and that was because I had to try to fight. I knew I couldn't just leave him with what happened in the beginning and not develop anything else. So it was a struggle to me, and it was something one of my mentors kind of nudged me about. It was a struggle to kind of bring him, like there were sections of the book where I wouldn't even mention him, and she's like, "Okay, so what's Ray doing?" So I had to be thoughtful about how do I weave him into the story. I know people are gonna hate him and think he's done something so tragic. How do I still continue to use him to drive the story forward? So thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
As someone who had some intel on the book before it came out and knew about the mystique and the purposeful naming and etc., I don't remember us discussing this. I remember us discussing this, but not in depth. On the cover, you notice it has Franklintown on the book. And I remember I asked I said, "Do you think you should change that? Because I think people would garner a relationship with Amelia Allen with Franklintown on the cover." I don't remember your response. What's your response?
I just didn't think anybody would make the connection because we were using the pseudonym, which my real name is Celestial, and Mbinguni is the Swahili translation of my name. So I didn't think with us using a pseudonym that people would piece it together.
That's the first thing I thought of.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
But they still wouldn't know it was me.
Exactly. But I think with Franklintown just being in your face, I just automatically.
Well, and that's kind of another one of those. Let me see if you can find out.
Exactly.
Let me see if you can figure it out.
Like that little tweak that you didn't want to change it, but I just really, I was nervous the entire time. Okay, it's going to be revealed. Someone's going to uncover you, someone's gonna find out. But it's
We
three
left
of
little
us in
breadcrumbs,
here
but nobody
that-
figured it out.
Yeah, I know, but like I said, there are three of us in here today that actually knew about the book before it was published.
Mhm.
So I had some people would bounce off her little idiosyncrasies that I thought were idiosyncrasies in it. And even Karen was like, no, nobody will catch that. Nobody really knows where Franklin Town is. So I just like the way that it's on the cover and it's a nod to Amelia Island. I think that's great.
It's funny.
Okay. Go.
No, I'm coming. It's funny because on the website we had to do all this stuff before we had this event where I was revealed at the end as the author, and so I had to get up the website and all that kind of stuff. And I'm also a certified scuba diver, and so there's a line on my website that says something about diving into something, and mine is like, they're gonna know. I'm like, no, they're not gonna know. They're not gonna know. I didn't even do that on purpose. Yes.
Yep. Well, I have to confess, I haven't read the book yet, but I was just so intrigued. I opened the paper and said, "Oh, this is happening today." So I came, and just listening to you, it's not only the fact that you were here on Amelia Island, but then you referenced like Eatonville, Michigan. I said, "Well, so Zora Neale Hurston." There's a bunch of references, and I just wonder, do you ever worry that, both Zora and Marjorie Kinnan Rawlings had problems with, people saying, "You wrote about me." Do you ever have problems about that?
No. Other than referencing Edenville, which it's in another state, I knew that was a nod, but no, I don't really have any fear of that because I'm not really writing about anyone personally or specifically. So,
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Well, now I'm definitely gonna read it.
One more.
Oh, can you tell us again why you decided to use a pseudonym? I didn't really follow that.
Okay. So I mentioned my aunt who asked the question a moment ago. We have a family book club. We did a huge event on a few occasions called the Fancy Hat Literary Luncheon. And she is known for her surprises and her hosting skills. And we always surprise the guests with the author. So when I started the book, I kind of mentioned it to her. And in the process, again, we lost my grandmother. And I mentioned saying, I've been writing this book. And she said, wouldn't it be great if we, surprised the audience with you being the author? And then it kind of morphed into us doing it in a different way, but we wanted to surprise a book club. Oh. And so I kind of wanted to hide in plain sight, and that's why we chose Mbinguni as the name. Mm-hmm. She selected the name, which she named me at birth too, so she's named me twice.
Celestio, tell us why you write and what does it do for you?
That's a good question.
Beautiful story for us.
Thank you.
But what does it bring you?
Writing is an outlet for me. It is a passion. I just fell in love with the use of words. And, like I said, reading Toni Morrison at a young age, when I read The Bluest Eye, that was the first book I read by her, I was just almost breathless reading these words. And that was what showed me the power of words. And so that's why I like to write and write in many different forms. So for me, it is an outlet, and excuse me, I'm articulate and if I'm talking to people, but I don't particularly do a lot of speaking and that kind of thing. So that's my way to communicate. And oftentimes, even if, let's say I'm in breakdown with someone, I may write a letter versus having a conversation because it's easier for me to express myself that way.
That's all writers, honestly. Any more questions?
You said that Mouse had been in your head and that you started to work on a second book. Who's in your head now?
Well, I have a female scuba diver in my head. And she's very sassy. And her name's Obsidian, but they call her Sid.
Nice.
And that's all I can give you. I can't tell you the rest. But she's going to also go on a fantastical adventure. So.
We don't have to wait 14 years.
You can hold me to that. I'm not gonna make you wait 14 years. I'm gonna do better. Yes.
Do you plan to write any more about the life of Mouth after her, into her adulthood?
I don't. However, Miss Sookie has been kind of nudging me too, so we may find out more about Miss Sookie and her life before she met Mouse. Yes, sir.
What intrigues me about the book is that it's a period piece, so that means you have to be very familiar with what went on. Me being a historian, and what caught my eye was the Franklin town, and the time period would have been when American Beach was at its heyday.
Mm-hmm.
So I was thinking, wow, did she really know of a whorehouse? That was my first thought. But how did you just really get? I mean, you talked about the clothing and so forth, but there's particularly in you wrote a piece that's you're a Southerner, but it's transpiring up north. So that's an interesting aspect of it also, because there's some significant differences between small towns in the South for Black folks and small towns up north. So I just was wondering how you address that issue.
Research, just like for instance, when I'm describing them coming into the town where Miss Janie is, I said, oh, 1 minute houses wouldn't have been the same. Let me go figure out what the neighborhood would have looked like. So it was just that kind of thing. Let me research and see what is different and what I need to kind of call out. So if you remember, she calls out houses having basements, which is not something we do in the South. So that was something that I had to go and say, okay, what did the houses look like, or what did this look like? But a lot of the stuff, especially the things that are centered around the South, was just me kind of remembering family, talking about things and that kind of thing. Yes.
Was any of the cooking in the first part of the book, when you referred to baking cakes and things, was that an homage to your grandmother, because she was an excellent cook?
Yes. And that was something we did together. So that was, yeah. Somebody else. Okay.
I think we've talked out.
Thank you all for coming. I appreciate it. And for those of you who haven't read, I hope you enjoy it.
They will.
Thank you, Mbinguni. Thank you, Dearsha.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming. There are some beautiful, refreshing